Cal Rourke handed over his last $2,700 for 37 acres of white, cracked dirt. The Brackett cousins laughed while he signed the deed. To them, it was a dead salt pan, a tax problem, a worthless scar at the bottom of their valley. To Cal, it was the only ground he could still afford. And what none of them knew was that the dead dirt was not really dirt at all, it was the lid on a $31 million deposit. Cal Rourke had spent 67 years learning what land could do to a man. It could feed him, it could humble him, it could take every strong thing in his body and leave only the habit of getting up anyway.
His hands were thick and split from irrigation pipe, fence wire, diesel oil, and January mornings so cold that a gate latch could bite skin like a blade. For nearly 4 decades, Cal had leased 400 acres outside Juniper Flats, Oregon, running a modest band of sheep and a few old Hereford cattle on land nobody else cared enough to improve. He was not a big operator. He was the kind of rancher who knew which ditch would overflow after a hard thaw, which you would drop twins, and which patch of greasewood meant the soil had gone sour underneath. But the new agriculture moving into Juniper Flats did not care about that kind of knowing. It cared about acreage, loan ratios, water allotments, yield maps, and men who could turn a valley into a spreadsheet. That was how Cole and Bennett Brackett arrived. The Brackett cousins had inherited a respectable family farm and turned it into Brackett Horizon Ag, a glossy, debt-fueled operation with center pivots, drones, crop consultants, and a front office that looked more like a bank than a farm. They wore clean boots, they drove trucks that never smelled of livestock, and they liked saying the future belonged to people who understood scale. Cal understood scale, too. He understood the scale of a hay bill when spring came late, the scale of a bank notice on a kitchen table, the scale of silence after a man realizes the land he has cared for is no longer his. When Cal's landlord died, the Bracketts moved fast. Before the funeral flowers had browned, they outbid him for the lease he had held for 39 years. Not by a little. By enough to make the old man look foolish for even trying. Cal sold most of his sheep in one bitter afternoon. He kept 21 bred ewes and 6 thin cows on a neighbor's back lot, paying for hay with money he did not have. After the last check cleared, he had $2,700 left. That was everything. Then he saw parcel 19. On the county map it looked almost square. 37 acres sitting in the lowest bowl of the Brackett Valley, surrounded on 3 sides by their grain ground. Locals called it the White Plate. Nothing grew there. No ryegrass. No rabbit brush. Not even cheatgrass. And cheatgrass would grow in the crack of a shovel handle if it had the chance. In winter, the place turned slick and chalky. In July, it hardened into plates that rang under a boot heel. The surface was pale enough to hurt the eyes, webbed with cracks like old porcelain. The Bracketts hated it, because parcel 19 was technically part of their production acreage. Every dead acre dragged down their average. It hurt their crop insurance profile. It made their lender ask questions. It made their beautiful digital yield maps show an ugly blank square right in the middle. They had spent money trying to force life into it. Gypsum, sulfur, manure pellets, a custom alkaline soil treatment from Boise. The White Plate swallowed all of it and stayed dead. So when Cal walked into the Brackett office and asked to buy it, Bennett actually laughed. "That place?" Bennett said, leaning against a glass conference table. "Cal, you couldn't starve a coyote out there. Nothing alive wants that ground." Cole, the colder of the two, sat behind a desk with 3 monitors showing commodity charts. "What are you offering?" he asked. Cal took off his hat. $2,700 cash. Bennett grinned. "For 37 acres of poison." Cal kept his voice even. "I have an idea about salt-tolerant forage. 4-wing saltbush. Maybe forage kochia. Deep ripping first, if the pan will open. Cole studied him for a long second. $2,700 meant nothing to Bracket Horizon Ag, but removing Parcel 19 from their official farm unit would clean up their numbers before a refinancing review. And more than that, Cole liked the shape of it. The old man who refused to sell out, buying the worst dirt in the county with the last money he had. Fine, Cole said. As is. No warranties. No water guarantees. No soil guarantees. No complaints when your cows start licking rocks. Draw it up, Cal said. Cole did. And because he thought the deal was too small to bother the company lawyer, he used a quitclaim form from an old file, added an as-is clause, printed it, and had Cal sign before noon. 48 hours later, the deed was recorded. That night, Bennett told half the steakhouse that they had sold Cal Work a 37-acre dinner plate for merely $3,000. People laughed into their beers. Cal heard about it before breakfast. He said nothing. He had land now. That was all he let himself think. The land punished him immediately. Cal parked his old camper on the north edge of Parcel 19 and spent the first night listening to wind scrape dust across the aluminum walls. By morning, the windows were filmed white. The air tasted bitter, almost metallic. He brought in a 40-year-old Case tractor and a subsoiler with 2 heavy shanks. His plan was simple enough. Break the hardpan, catch the spring moisture, plant kochia and saltbush, then pray long enough for roots to do what money could not. The first shank lasted 28 yards. The steel broke so sharply that Cal felt it through the seat. He climbed down and stared at the torn line in the ground. Under the white crust was not soil as he knew it. It was waxy gray-green clay with a faint blue sheen, packed so dense that a broken chunk felt heavy in his palm. When he rubbed it between his fingers, it turned slick, then powdery. It had no living smell, no root smell, no worm smell. It smelled like wet batteries and lightning. Cal looked across the empty acres. "What are you hiding?" he whispered. For 2 weeks, he tried everything a poor man could try. Shallow tilling, water hauling, a borrowed disc, even a homemade drag built from railroad ties and chain. The land did not soften. When water hit the exposed clay, it hissed into a milky paste and dried into a harder crust than before. The animals were eating hay he could not afford. His neighbor had stopped asking when Cal might pay him back. And every morning, the white plate looked brighter, harder, and more impossible. Then the water tank went empty. Cal needed a well. He called Milt Sweeney, an old wildcat driller who still ran a cable tool rig older than most of the pickups in Juniper Flats. Milt owed Cal a favor from a winter 10 years earlier, when Cal had pulled his truck out of a flooded draw at 2 in the morning. "Water down there is usually bad," Milt warned. "Brine, sulfur, alkali. You might hit something wet and still not want it." "I don't need pretty," Cal said. "I need wet." Milt drilled on a cold blue morning with the wind coming hard out of the rimrock. At 50 feet, the bit hammered through more of the slick gray clay. At 70, it started dropping faster. At 96 feet, the rig coughed, jumped, and punched into pressure. A thick white plume shot up around the casing. It was not water. It was heavy, pearly brine, bright as milk, with rainbow edges where the sun caught it. It ran across the pan in slow ribbons and left chalky crystals on Milt's boots almost instantly. Milt shut the rig down and stared. "Cal," he said quietly, "I've drilled stock wells in 3 states. I have never seen water act like that." Cal filled a glass jar from the puddle. By sunset, the outside of the jar had dried with a pale crust around the lid. By midnight, Cal sat at his camper table with the jar in front of him, wondering if he had bought not a pasture, but a poison spring. The county extension office could not help him. The soil technician took one look at the brine, frowned, and told him to drive it to the university lab in Corvallis. Cal almost did not go. He had $43 in his wallet, half a tank of fuel, and animals waiting on feed. But there are moments when a man keeps moving, because stopping would make the truth too plain. So he drove 5 hours west with the jar wrapped in a towel on the passenger seat. Dr. Leona Merritt, a geochemist at Oregon State, agreed to test it, mostly because the jar was strange and Cal looked too tired to be sent away. Probably an extreme saline seep, she said. Agricultural basin chemistry can get ugly. Can it kill stock? Cal asked. It can kill hope first, she said, then softened when she saw his face. Leave it with me. I will run a mineral panel. Cal drove back through the night. 2 days later, he stopped at the Juniper Cafe for a cup of coffee he could barely justify buying. Cole and Bennett Brackett were in the big booth by the window, laughing with 2 crop consultants. Bennett saw him first. "How's the salt farm, Cal?" he called. "You get that bumper crop of nothing planted yet?" The consultant smiled. Cole lifted his coffee. "We might buy it back if you're already tired of it," he said. "Course, now that you broke it, maybe 500 is fair." Cal wrapped both hands around his cup. He did not answer. He had no answer left. That night, he wrote down the phone number of a livestock buyer. In the morning, he would sell the ewes and the cows. After that, he would sell the camper. Maybe rent a room in town. Maybe stop calling himself a rancher. At 5:18 the next morning, his phone buzzed so hard it rattled against the plywood shelf beside his bed. "Mr. Rourke." Dr. Merritt's voice was sharp and awake. "Are you alone?" Cal sat up. "I'm in my camper. On parcel 19. Yes. Do not post anything. Do not call the extension office. Do not let the Brackett step on that land." Cal's mouth went dry. "Is it dangerous?" "Yes," she said, "but not the way you think." He heard paper moving on her end. "I ran your brine twice. Then I ran the clay sample you left in the towel. Then I asked another lab to confirm it without your name on the file." "Confirm what?" "Cal, your brine is carrying battery-grade lithium at concentrations I have only seen in closed basin deposits. The clay is lithium-bearing hectorite, with boron and traces of scandium." He stared through the camper window at the white acres glowing in dawn light. "I don't know what that means." Dr. Merritt's voice dropped. "It means that dead ground may be the exposed cap of a mineralized basin nobody mapped. It means the reason nothing grows there is the same reason companies spend years looking for places like it." Cal swallowed. "How much?" "I am bringing a survey team," she said. "But if the deposit is continuous under your parcel, you are not sitting on bad pasture. You are sitting on a battery field." By noon, Dr. Merritt arrived with 2 graduate researchers, a portable analyzer, sealed sampling cases, and a private mineral surveyor named Ansel Price. Price had a narrow face, sunburned eyes, and the quiet manner of a man who had made rich people richer by noticing what everyone else walked over. He crouched beside the broken furrow, lifted a gray-green clay chip, and turned it in the light. "This is why your plow snapped," he said. "Not ordinary hardpan. This is altered volcanic ash. A sealed basin, probably old lakebed, mineralized over a very long time." Cal looked from him to the white pan. "You are telling me this is mine?" "If your deed carried the mineral estate," Price said, "then yes." For 4 days they worked under as much secrecy as a flat valley allows. They sampled the brine, mapped down the shallow basin, pulled cores after dark, measured the conductivity beneath the white plate. The numbers kept getting better. The brine was not a world-class ocean, but it was shallow, concentrated, accessible, and sitting under private land with road access. The clay layer carried lithium and boron in commercially meaningful grades. The scandium was not the main value, but it made the surveyor whistle softly when the assay came back. By the 5th evening, Ansel Price gave Cal the first honest number. "Conservative recoverable value," he said, tapping the report, somewhere around $31 million before development costs. More if the basin extends under the neighboring acreage. Cal sat on the tailgate of Milt's rig and said nothing for nearly a minute. Then he asked, "Can the brackets take it back?" Price did not smile. "They will try." They found out the next afternoon. Bennett was checking a pivot line on the ridge when he saw vehicles on parcel 19. Not a ranch truck, not a feed delivery, a university SUV, a drilling rig, people in hard hats setting flags in the dead ground. He raised binoculars. Then he called Cole. By 3 o'clock, Cole had pulled the deed file from the cabinet in the bracket office. By 3:05, he had stopped breathing normally. Because in his rush to make Cal accept every risk, he had written the exact words that now ruined him. All appurtenances, all water interests, all underlying and subsurface rights attached to the parcel. He had not reserved the mineral rights. He had not separated the brine. He had not even called a lawyer. He had sold the white plate in fee simple because he believed there was nothing beneath it worth keeping. "Get Wade on the phone," Cole snapped to his assistant, "and tell him we need an emergency injunction today." The lawsuit arrived 2 mornings later. Fraud, misrepresentation, bad faith purchase, concealment of mineral value. The brackets claimed Cal must have known what was under the land before he bought it. They claimed he had tricked them. They claimed a poor old rancher with a broken tractor and no well money had somehow engineered one of the cleanest mineral grabs in eastern Oregon. A month earlier, those papers would have crushed him. Now, Ansel Price had already made a call. Her name was Maren Voss, a natural resources attorney from Reno who had spent 20 years tearing apart sloppy land contracts for mining companies. She took one look at Cole brackets as his clause and agreed to represent Cal on contingency. The first hearing was moved to mediation to avoid a public circus. The brackets arrived with 3 attorneys, a valuation consultant, and the cold confidence of men who believed law was simply another machine they could afford to run longer than anyone else. Cal arrived in clean jeans, a pressed blue shirt, and the same work boots he had worn the day he signed the deed. Maren Voss carried one folder. No stack of boxes, no theater. One folder. The mediator, Judge Harlan Pike, sat at the head of the conference table. Cole's lead attorney began first. "Mr. Rourke exploited my client's lack of specialized geological knowledge. We are prepared to unwind the sale, refund the purchase price, and offer an additional $20,000 as a gesture of fairness." Bennett looked pleased with himself. Maren opened her folder. "Your Honor," she said, "the seller drafted the contract. The seller wrote the as-is language. The seller disclaimed every warranty related to soil, water, subsurface condition, and productive use. The seller transferred the parcel with all underlying rights." She slid the deed across the table. "That is not fraud, that is regret." Cole's jaw tightened. He knew, Bennett snapped. He had to know. Maren turned one page. "Mr. Rourke attempted to rip the ground for salt-tolerant forage. He broke a subsoiler shank. He drilled for stock water because your clients had taken his leased pasture and left him no functioning operation. The mineral discovery occurred after closing." Then, she placed a second document beside the deed. The paper bore the letterhead of Helian North Minerals. Cole read the first line and went pale. Maren let him read enough before speaking again. "My client has signed a letter of intent for purchase of the parcel, associated water rights, and mineral estate. The deposit has been independently confirmed. The escrow deposit cleared yesterday." Judge Pike looked over his glasses. "For how much?" Maren's voice stayed flat. $31.4 million. No one moved. Not Bennett, not Cole, not the lawyers behind them. The room had gone so quiet that Cal could hear the air conditioner ticking above the ceiling tile. For years, the brackets had measured every acre by what it could produce on the surface. Bushels, yield maps, insurance scores, loan ratios. They had laughed at dead ground, because dead ground embarrassed their spreadsheets, and they had sold it to the one man in the valley desperate enough to still look at it closely. Judge Pike pushed the deed back toward Cole. "You wrote a contract that gave the buyer every risk," he said. "Turns out it also gave him every reward." Bennett leaned back like the chair had disappeared under him. Cole stared at the paper as if the words might rearrange themselves. They did not. "The deed stands," the judge said. "Drop the claim before mid. Voss files for fees and sanctions." Cal rose slowly. He did not laugh. He did not boast. He did not call them fools. He only put his hat back on and looked at the two men, who had tried to turn his last dollar into a joke. "You boys always wanted bigger ground," he said. "You should have looked deeper at the little piece you already had." 8 months later, Healy and North fenced the White Plate and began building a small extraction site on the dead acres where Cal's tractor had broken. Cal did not stay to watch the cranes. He paid his debts first. Then he bought back every ewe he could find from his old bloodline. Then he purchased 900 green acres in a sheltered valley near the Wallawas, with live water, timber shade, and enough winter grass to make an old rancher stand very still the first time he saw it. He hired 2 local hands at wages that made people talk. He fixed the fences before he fixed the house. And when spring came, Cal walked out before sunrise and listened to lambs calling in grass wet with frost. The Bracketts had called the White Plate worthless because nothing grew on it. But land does not reveal its value to men who only know how to strip the surface. Sometimes the richest ground is the ground arrogant people are too certain to question.